I think it's a clear. Ah, you're right.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our talk with the Palestinian author, political scientist, and politician, Atef Abu Saif. Welcome everybody here in Frankfurt, and welcome to everybody following the live stream. The title of this session tries to sum up the Palestinian tragedy: occupied, destroyed, embattled, in turmoil, quo vadis, Palestine. And I think when we look at the Palestinian territories these days, one thing is very clear. The world has failed the Palestinian people. We have failed the people in Gaza. We have failed the people in the West Bank for more than a year because we have reduced them to human shields, to Hamas supporters, to collateral damage, to legitimate targets, to terrorists, and the media has helped in dehumanizing the Palestinians. And this has to stop. It is high time to turn the Palestinians back into fellow human beings that we can identify with. So Atef Abu Saif is here to help you in doing so, by bearing witness to what is going on and by analyzing the situation there. And he is the perfect partner to do this, as he was born and raised in Gaza. He has a huge family there. He knows the West Bank. He lives in Ramallah. He's a member of Fatah, the political party of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He served as the Minister of Culture for 10 years.
5 years. 5 years.
Only five?
Only
okay.
5.
Still time to go. Okay.
I didn't have much time to do it.
You used to be a speaker of Fatah as well, and you were attacked by Hamas militants in Gaza, which was the reason for you to leave the Gaza Strip in the past. But first and foremost, Atef is an author of several books. He has written 6 novels. He has published 2 collections of short stories. He writes theater plays and columns. 10 years ago, he published his first diary. This was in 2014. This is what we have here in German. Frühstück mit der Drohne, The Drone Eats With Me in English. Another very successful novel, A Suspended Life, will be published in Germany next month in the Sujet Verlag. And we are here today to talk about his newest book, his most recent book, which was published in English by Comma Press, Don't Look Left, A Diary of Genocide. And it's going to be published in German, I just learned, in January. So this is good news that somebody dares to publish it. Edition 9 is the publishing house that will bring it out in German. So Atef, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
We will talk about politics, we will talk about the future of Palestine, but I want to start really with this newest book, with the diary from Gaza, and this means that we start in Gaza. On October 7th, you were there on a 3-day work visit in Gaza, together with your son, 15-year-old Yasser. And so you were caught up in this, what had to become this war, and you could have left right at the beginning. You were already packing, and your family in Ramallah was urging you to leave. What made you stay?
Okay, thank you very much for hosting me here. And thank you, Kristin, for this introduction, and for the Frankfurt Book Fair, and for the audience. When things happened, I was swimming in the beach actually at that time, for 6:30 in the morning or something. And I could leave the same day actually, and the day after, but I couldn't leave my father, for example, And I would say always I was born in Gaza. I lived all my life in Gaza, except those few years in which I studied abroad. And I was born in the year of war, actually, 1973. So I lived all my life on a sequences of the same war, actually, I would say. So for me, it's not new to live in a war, And I couldn't just take back my stuff. I'm not better than the rest of my people, actually. You know,
But your son, you had a responsibility for your son as well.
Yeah, but my son, even he didn't want to leave, to be honest, you know. And he's, you know, he's not afraid. Of course, we're no heroes. We're all humans. And anybody tells you that he doesn't fear death, he's a liar. And because we're human, and this part of us being afraid and being frightened and, you know, hiding. But then I couldn't just, you know, because I'm privileged being a minister, I could leave. This was honestly deep inside, it would hurt my humanity. Because I wouldn't leave my dad back. My dad unfortunately, my dad died later on from the war in April this year, 14 April actually. And my mother-in-law, and yesterday my niece, the little kid, 8 years old. So it couldn't just, because it happens that you're a politician, that just you take these privileges and leave your people behind. So I prefer to stay. And okay, I left after 3 months because I had ministerial meetings outside in Cairo with Arab ministers of culture, staff meetings, which are my duties to do as well, as to talk about even those people behind. So yeah, I prefer to, and I never regretted it. At a certain moment, you know, when I saw death, and I saw it, when I see it, this is not a word of an author. You see it, physically you see death. When you're walking and the one beside you is hit and died. Then death was walking alongside your shoulder. So, and when I saw death and I touched it, of course I'm human. I tell myself, why didn't I do it?
So you decided to stay and to bear witness. Maybe we have to explain that Atef's family is from Jabaliyeh. So this is the place.
Camp.
Yes, the refugee camp in Jabaliyeh. This is exactly where for almost 2 weeks now the Israeli army is hitting.
My niece was killed yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
And my aunt until the rappel since the day before yesterday.
And
She's
it was the same
my mother's
day.
sister,
Yes.
Fatma.
If you read his book, it's like the 19th of October, he describes how this big house of your cousin falls apart and is destroyed. And the survivors of the 19th of October last year died today, 19th of October.
There were 5
1 year
persons.
later.
5, yeah, and they were killed today anyway.
Okay, so you decided to bear witness, and it turned out to be a diary. You know, the book has 85 chapters, 1 for each day. You left Gaza on the 30th of December of last year. But you could have focused, you're an analyst as well, you could have focused on writing reports, making analysis, giving interviews. What made you write a diary?
I'm not a journalist, and I didn't want to be I worked as a journalist one time in my life, like for a few months. But, you know, actually I didn't want to write a diary at the beginning. And the first 5 days, I just was writing, you know, the iron of life. You know, how we human being in these conditions, we manage to survive. You know, I remember that I didn't go to the beach for the last 5 years. So I told my brother and my son, let's go to the beach in the morning. Then everything happened. I didn't even enjoy, you know, having, anyway. So the irony of our human condition as a human, how we live in kind of a scenario that is manipulated and that transforms our life, you know. So I started to write as an author, actually, as a novelist. Then after 3-4 days, I realized that I might die. When I saw people falling up, and the city is dying. The most astonishing for me was, we all sympathetic with the victims, the 42,000, and the 23 missed as well, like 70,000. But I was seeing the city dying in front of my eyes every day, collapsing. Part of it is dying, assassinated. Then I thought I might die. And to the first time, you have to get, at certain points, we're not stones, you know. We collapse from inside. So I said, yeah, if I die, I want people to read this. For this, I started to write more personal, and sometimes I started to reflect on my personal history even, in the first Intifada, and on my grandmother Aisha, and how she was forced to leave her house in Jaffa and to become a refugee, etc., etc., etc. So I started to write about myself, and because I said if I die, I need people to know that it happened that there is a person called Atef lived here. And after, this is how it is. So I was doing it simultaneously, a text in Arabic, a text in English. And half it was in my handwriting, actually, not in the computer, because we don't have electricity, we don't, you know. So sometimes I have to walk 2-3 kilometers to charge the laptop to be able to type, you know.
The book starts on October 7th, but it does not start with the Hamas attack in Israel. So it begins, you already mentioned this, on the other side of the fence at the beach, actually. This is how the book starts. So people in Germany might ask, why did you not mention the massacre of Hamas at the beginning of your book?
First, I was not making a report to say what happened. Because I was writing about myself, what happened to me. For example, I don't mention everything happens in Gaza, even in October 20 or in November 30. I was writing what happens around me, to me and my family. And this is you have reporters, you have journalists, you have historians in the future, they can talk about this. But for me, I was just writing diary. So I was not writing a book, actually, at that time, remember. And I was not writing even journalistic reports. So sometimes I wouldn't, I remember in this massacre in Jabalia, where it took in my neighborhood, I wrote that 500 were killed in the massacre. This is the information we got when we were rescuing people. But it turns out there were 1,200 later on. But I didn't correct the information, because this is the information of that day. So again, I was not writing about the war. I was writing about a human in this war. So I wouldn't write about something which I didn't witness or I didn't see. So I wouldn't write analysis, you know, hearing the news. I never say the news says so, you know. It might be in the future people write about it. And of course, media covered it.
And I mean, this is exactly what you are writing is exactly what has been missing to the outside world, because we know a lot.
At a certain moment, there were no journalists in Gaza City.
Yeah.
And I would say that 17 press houses were destroyed in the war, and 174 journalists were killed. But at a certain moment in Jabalia and Gaza City, now no single journalist, I think Al Jazeera reporter only, and Anas Sharif.
And people turned into reporters, you know, like people.
No, even the reporter of Al Jazeera, he's not a professional. He was, I remember he came to the press house and he took the camera from Bilal, the head of the press house. Then he became a very famous journalist. So the journalism, and you talked about betrayal of the Gaza people. For God's sake, everybody left Gaza, international organization, journalism, in the first week. And no single European and Western journalist was in Gaza on October 7. No single. And I was sleeping in the press house, so I know all the journalists in Gaza. And after a week, everybody started to leave to the south. Before the people, I left after 40 days, I left to the south. But all the journalists, they left the first 2 weeks. And we were left with, so our writing and what we post on the Facebook was the only news coming from Gaza City and its surrounding.
Yes, and this is very important because we know a lot about the trauma and the grief in Israel, because it has been extensively been reported on, and we know that there's a 7th October ongoing inside Israel as well, but it's very difficult for us to grasp this continuous carnage and horror that is going on in the Palestinian territories. Now, I want to ask you, who comes to your mind? Who are the victims? We don't know a lot about the victims. Who comes to your mind when you think about the people in Gaza? Now, I mean, this is...
My father. This old man, he was 73 years old. And I begged him to come with me to the north, to the south, south. And he told me this funny story, very sadly. He said, Atef, I was born in a tent in this camp. I'm not going to die in a tent. He was born in 1951 in a tent in Jabalia, instead of being born in this villa, which his family belongs until now in Jaffa. It's still there in Tel Aviv. So he said, go, take your son and go, and leave me here. And this old man, the last time I talked to him, he didn't have bread for 3 weeks. When Jabalia was besieged back then in November, if you remember March, the big siege. And he used to have 12 kind of pills. He ended up taking 3 of them. Then he went to the hospital, and I found the doctor. He said, Atef, it's better he go home to die there. And everybody remembers his beloved. And so he's my father. He's the one who was working hard as a construction man to get me the best Palestinian university. Because the war in 1967 took place when he was supposed to join the university, and he couldn't. So he spent all the things he was saving to get me and my brothers better education and the best education he can, because he couldn't get the education because of the wars.
You spent almost 3 months in this war, and it is a war that Israel insists is in self-defense, and it is aiming at destroying Hamas, that is hiding behind civilians and infrastructure like schools, hospitals, and camps. So how does this war look like when you're on the ground? How does it feel on the ground?
No, it's a war against the Palestinian people, because you cannot say my dad is not Hamas. And my sister, my niece, do you believe this little niece, Sama, her name, of 8 years old is Hamas, even or Fateh or anything? She's nothing. She's a kid. She doesn't have a. So this war is against Palestinians, you know, in general, against the place, you know. If you look how the Gaza City is the place, you cannot imagine. Gaza is one of the oldest cities in the world, 6,000 years old. Okay, tell me, is the third oldest church in the world, is it Hamas? The church. You know this, the third oldest church in the world is in Gaza, in the Zaytun Quarter. And 18 Palestinian Christians were killed while they flew from their flats and they went to God to pray for him in the church. Then they were killed there. So it's not, you know, war doesn't have any logic, you know. And killing is killing. You cannot just justify anything when it comes to war. But I mean, it's pity, you know, that 2,300,000 Palestinians is blocked in this place and being subject to killing. And just look to numbers. You have 42 killed, 23 missed. This means it stands for 70,000. This is like 4 or 5% of the Gaza population. This means if you have a city of 100 million, 5 million are killed in Gaza. You cannot justify this. And you cannot, this is against Atef or against Mahmoud or against Ali or against, you know, it's a war.
Yeah, but we want to listen to the stories behind the numbers, because this is exactly what you create, you know.
But not numbers at the end.
Yeah, that's the whole point. We keep on discussing numbers from Gaza, you know. We really have to know who are the human beings behind them.
You know, numbers.
Yes, but for example, I remember that you were writing that people would send text messages from under the rubble and they could not be received because there was no internet, right? So people would try to be saved and they would wait for people to come and save them from under the rubble. It couldn't happen.
You cannot. My wife, she lost her sister. She's under the rubble since a year and 11 days. She believes she's alive until now.
She's still not retrieved. They could not retrieve the body.
No, she believes. Just, you know, we think of miracles as human beings. She thinks that she might be alive until now because we tried. In the book, I was telling about how we tried to rescue them under the rubble, but we couldn't because it was very hard, the tanks chilling. And so we are not numbers for the people who love us.
How do people try to avoid to be killed?
Wait. War tries to dehumanize you. It's not, you know, the figures and the numbers. Even war itself, it tries to turn you into a monster. Because, you know, when you don't find food and water or shelter, you tend to, you know, you lose part of your humanity at a certain point. But the victims for their beloved persons are not numbers. They're not figures. They're not photos. They're nothing. And believe me, my wife, until now, until today, she doesn't believe her. She says, oh, Atef, she might be hiding under a certain care of the building, and she might be managing, and, you know. But I tell her, it's a year and 11 days today. It was, a year and 4 days. It was 15 October. And so, you know, so we're a human. Blood and flesh, we have stories, we're not numbers. I say, this is not 1 year that passed. This is 356 days. These are 12 months. These are 13,000 minutes. And if you count, this is like, I don't know, for 24 million seconds. It's easy for us to say it's 1 year past.
And there are different strategies for people to survive. Some families would say, you know, let's move together inside a building. Some people would say, let's
divide themselves.
So what's the strategy here? People want to die together or they want to die
No,
separately?
but usually they will divide themselves, you know. They will divide themselves, and it's a matter of, they say, in case this part is hit in the house, like myself, I was living in the stair. naively, of course. I was thinking, if the building fell, then this is the most fortified place on the building. So, the stairs has more concrete pillars. So I say, yeah, it might, and it doesn't actually, believe me. But just, we always try to deceive ourselves by creating those strategies. Like myself, when we were sleeping in the press house, we were sleeping in the corridor between the desks of the editors. I don't know why. Just you feel you're surrounded by something. The desks, blue desks here, blue desks here. So we putting our mattress in the middle. Of course, this little wood from the desk will not save you. It might even be very sharp and hit you in your heart. But then this is how you try to make out your way. And, like myself, I just sometimes, when I wake up, I tell myself, what if I am dead among a community of dead persons? What is the proof that all the people around me are not dead like me? I'll tell you how. For this I was writing. When I write, when I finish, I read it loud. So I hear my voice talking about myself. So I say, this who wrote this should be someone who's alive. This is me. So I was surviving through, this is how, I was, as an author, trying to convince myself that I'm alive. That this life that I'm talking about, it happened to me just a few minutes ago. This means that when I wrote it, I was alive. It's not, I think then I'm alive, Descartes stuff, but it's sometimes how everybody has his own universe, And everybody of us is a universe by itself.
Now, at the beginning, you are staying at a hotel, then you are moving to the press house of your friend Bilal, but you have to evacuate several times, and this is very important. On November 21st, you leave the north and you head south, and you end up in a tent actually for the last 30 days, I think. So we keep on quoting the Israeli military with evacuation plans, their policy of humanitarian corridors and safe zones, because they are trying to avoid civilian deaths. This is the narrative and how it goes. So what do these evacuation orders mean for people on the ground?
Nice, these are not evacuation.
And why would you not follow it? Because you write at some point that you decided
these are Israeli military maps for their own. It's not like as if they want to save your life, because many people died in the way when they were evacuating, and many people were killed in the supposedly safe passage or safe area. So people wouldn't take it seriously, because the place they attacked Jabalia now, it was supposed to be a safe area at a certain point. So these are Israeli military plans, which of course, again, you need to deceive yourself many times and to convince yourself that they might be honest with us. Let's move. Because you love life, Our great poet Mahmoud Darwish, anybody knows Arabic? He says, نحب الحياة ما استطعنا إليها سبيلا. We love life as much as we can. So you have to believe your enemy and to evacuate certain time. To tell yourself, I decided to leave because I couldn't stand it after my friend Bilal, with whom I spent the first 40 days in the war, was killed. Then I said, I cannot be this selfish. I asked my son, do you want to leave? He refused. I said, listen, it's for you. For me, I got 50 years of my life. I enjoyed it. So, let's move to the south.
Actually, you write a lot about different people, your observation. You tell the story of different people, of journalists, of old friends, of your family, of course, of neighbors. You sit with them, you drive with them, you try to escape with them, you hide with them. Many of these people were killed in the end, like the sister of your wife. You've just mentioned her already. Her house was hit. We mentioned this. And you have Bilal, your journalist friend. You already mentioned him. He was the chief of the press house.
Yeah.
So you dedicated your book to Bilal. Why, and what's his story?
No, actually, Bilal is one of the most famous Gazan journalists. And he built this press house, which is like press club everywhere. And he made it a very big organization. And I joined him in founding it, actually. But then, it was like a joke. After 2 weeks of the war, when the first piece of these diaries were published, he was happy, because he was always supporting me as an author. We're good friends. Then he said he was having argila, We love life. Even when bombs around us, we sit and we laugh and we have argila. And whenever, just you try to seize any minute of life. So I was telling Bilal, Bilal, Next book I'm going to write, I'm going to dedicate it to you. I didn't know that he's going to die. Nobody knows anything. Then he said, no, Atef, I propose that you publish these diaries in a book and dedicate it to the workers in the press house. He was not selfish. He said, no, not to me. But when he died, and I intended to do this in case, But then when he died, yeah, he's the best deal. Anyway.
You're just mentioning this, despite all this horror of war, there's some daily life going on. I mean,
course.
people, of course, they are trying
to... Of course,
I
they
mean,
get married and they get fall in love, people in Gaza
yes.
now. And they have marriages and they have weddings. And my niece, she got married in Rafah in a tent. They had a very huge party. You wouldn't have it here even.
You had a birthday party for your son.
No, but I'm saying about the wedding of my niece. You wouldn't in Germany have better, a more joyful wedding than this. They were dancing, having dabka, and singing, and because they want life. And no, I did a birthday for my son in the tent as well. I cooked him pasta actually.
It's we had the last night before you left.
Because we had lots of pasta and the assistant packages we got. It's not that I wouldn't cook pasta. I would make a cake, but we don't have anything to make out of it. Just the pasta. And I studied in Italy, so I know how to make it. So we have to set a fire, and we life is a movie. Some movies are 8 minutes, some movies 10 minutes, some movies 2 minutes, 2 hours. So you have just to enjoy it,
And there's a lot of time. I mean, life in war means waiting a lot of time. You are saying this, that you have plenty of time that you have to get rid of. I mean, you are searching for food, you are busy with surviving, but at the same time, a lot of times you have nothing to do, you just wait. No, so what do you do with this?
No, it's not waiting in a good sense or in suspension. It's waiting with fear. Because in the morning when the day starts, you wait for the night. Because if the night comes, this means you managed and you lived this moment, and this time. So when the day comes, when the night arrives, you wait for the morning. This means you survived it. And because you live life minute by minute. You don't live life. You're not given life and you live it. You live day by day. You live hour by hour. You live, So you don't have much time. So you wait for time to pass. Sometimes you wish it's a nightmare. Or you tell yourself, what if this is a dream? And you wake up next day. And sometimes you have to, you know how we do? You say, yeah, am I dreaming or not? Because you want to be a dream. So it's not waiting. It's passing time. And you have plenty of time. Just when you sit in the house. We were spending 5 hours trying to get a signal of the news. And we enjoy it. 5 hours, you don't feel the 5 hours. Just you turn your mobile, and we have a little radio at that time in my friend's place at a certain moment. So we turn it like this. And we want news in Hebrew would hear it. We don't mind. Just we want to know what happens around us. Because you are the news, and you don't know the news.
Yeah, you are being the news.
You are the news and you don't know the news.
In the next morning, you would open your mobile and read the news that you were in. I mean, you are witnessing the death of 3 journalists, for example, and then you hear it on the news next day.
Yeah, come on. Sometimes you hear the news of your family being killed or being whatever.
In Gaza, there is a continuous state of surveillance. This is not new. I mean, this is Frühstück mit der Drohne, So it's like the Israeli military can watch everything you do. You are under continuous observation. How does this feel? The feeling that Israeli soldiers can watch you go falafel, go. This is not you, I know, but how does it feel? I mean,
I told you, war dehumanizes you. We're like, PUBG. Anybody plays PUBG? The kids thing. We're like the PUBG in their screens. So it's true. The drone is, one of the main things that every Gazan knows is the noise of the drone. The drone is, I'm not saying this rhetorically, it's 24 hours. Just, it's there. You're watched, you're observed in every minute, in every street, in every house. And the soldiers behind the border are watching us like they're watching a video game. So they're just watching and they're seeing. And so it's not against. We're turned into figures and into numbers and into characters in this video game, So this is how you're taken out of your context and you're put in this screen puts you in the imagination of the player, the soldier. So, it strips you from being yourself, and it turns you into video game characters in his mind. This is how, you're not dehumanized. He loses humanity as well when he's doing so. Because he acts as a character in the game as well. So this is again, it's not rhetoric, it's not metaphor. It's actual life, for this in the book goes, I was in the 2014 war, I was having Ramadan, suhoor, and where you, and just suddenly, I imagined the guy watching from behind the screen is sitting with me in the table and having the suhoor of Ramadan with me. It was on my head, and so what I'm saying, Israel was just digitally occupying Gaza. And this is the new form of occupation, by the way, where you have many colonial powers in the world. It's not Israel only. Where all great powers, they'd control many countries through, surveillance and through photos and images. So Israel would have like balloons on the borders, flying balloons and, satellite and of course the drone itself. And now there's a new kind of the drone called quadquarter. I don't know if you hear of it. It's where the drone itself decides the target.
Yeah.
It doesn't need somebody from behind the screen. It watches Jabalia, then she decides this might be dangerous. The machine decides. It's not the soldier even. It's injected with information, with the softwares, which gives the ability and the possibility and the choice to decide, and it kills.
Now let's talk politics, because we have to.
We were talking politics.
Yes, this is all politics. This is part of politics. But I mean, let's talk a little bit about the structures. For example, you have known Gaza your whole lifetime. You saw Hamas being elected, taking over the administration. You are a Fatah member, which meant that you were sidelined, you were even attacked by Hamas. You had to leave Gaza. How would you describe this relationship between the people, the population, and Hamas, the structures? You could be an employee in a ministry, so this makes you a Hamas supporter or not. Do we have to differentiate between Hamas fighters, the ones who carry the weapons?
Of course, in every society you have political structure, and you have people who support them. This doesn't mean this person and that is in total agreement with everything. The electoral, the people who vote. And Hamas, even if they won the election, they were not the majority of the Palestinian people. When they won the election back then, it was 43%, which means like 56% of the people. And by the way, in Gaza, Fatah was more than Hamas in this election, 2006, which Europe refused, remember, and they didn't recognize it. And you want democracy. This is democracy, by the way. Either you want democracy, you don't want democracy. But even again, it's not everyone with Hamas. This doesn't mean that you have the right to kill everyone.
But if you want to destroy Hamas, how do you do it?
I'm not military expert, Julio. I don't agree on this, actually. I wouldn't tell you that you have to destroy Hamas, because Hamas is the political... Even today, if you have election, Hamas is there. If you want democracy, then this... But what I'm saying, it's not you want to destroy or not. Do you want to have peace in this land or not? This is a question you have to ask yourself. And again, when Arafat went to Oslo Accord, and in 1993, right? 70% of the Palestinians were against the peace deal at that time. But they welcomed him with the flowers when he came to Gaza. But you remember what happened to Rabin? Anybody remembers? He was killed in Tel Aviv, but we didn't kill Arafat. Even Hamas leaders, they welcomed Arafat when he came after the peace deal. So this is not the point. The point, again, the only solution to this conflict is to have peace. And how you can have peace if you want to strip the Palestinians from their rights? How you want to have a state and don't have a state? How do you want to eat and to fill your stomach and I'm hungry? And you warm yourself near the stove and I feel cold. So either you're neighbors or you're not neighbors. Either we live as a human together or not. So the question, the only solution to this conflict is to have a proper peace wherein it's not peace according to your mind. Or to, like Ariel Sharon, he said, I give them whatever I want. It's not like this. The Palestinian, you talk about Gaza City. For God's sake, when Gaza was a city, half of the globe was not existing. Right? I'm not saying this. This is what the UNESCO say. And this is what the German archaeologists even, and the British and the French, they say. When it was a city, a flourished city, and a capital of the Phoenician and the Canaanite, half of the globe was the forest. Then now, the people of Gaza, just what they want? They want to survive. For 17 years, Gaza went under siege. And I was teaching political science at Al-Azhar University of Gaza. And once I want to make this exercise with my students, I was teaching Introduction to Political Science, where we have Gazan boys in the same class, you know. So I said, whoever went, there were 153 students, Gazan boys. Whoever went outside Gaza, one girl raised her hand. 152 students of 19 years old, never been outside Gaza. So these are, you have to tackle the correct questions, you know.
So let's talk about the future of Gaza. Could the death of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, could that be a turning point in the sense that now we have an option for a political negotiations, for a political solution, a ceasefire, a hostage deal, a plan for the day after instead of this continuous fighting? I mean, there are plans to do this. What's the biggest obstacle to this political solution?
I think at the end this war will end. It's not going to continue forever. And
how will it end?
I don't know, but you know, I know who doesn't want to end it, because the one who doesn't want to end it is the one who went to Lebanon to have another war when he was put in the corner. So
you mean Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Netanyahu, when everybody in the world was telling him, please stop the war and make a deal, what he did? He went to Lebanon. And hopefully he doesn't go to Iran as well. Let's hope, because we don't want we love this globe. We live here, you know. We humans, being Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindus, Sikh, whatever, what options we have? This is our globe. It doesn't matter where you're born and where you live. At the end, you know, we were made from the same idea, the creation of God, regardless of what you believe in, you know, as your religion. So how, I believe, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, who's controlling Hamas now. Let's say Sinwar or the one comes after him. It matters that you have to stop with this war and to withdraw out of Gaza, you know, because no Palestinian will accept after this war the Israeli army remains in Omar al-Mukhtar Street or Rimali Quarter. Because at the end, if you want to have a deal, again, any deal should be convincing for the victims. Otherwise, you know, those victims will not accept it in the future. So this is what I'm saying. And any peace deal should be part of the larger plan to regain peace process.
I mean, the ceasefire and the hostage deal that has been discussed and that has been discussed by the Americans, basically, and put on the table goes like this. Yeah. You have a ceasefire, you have a hostage deal, which goes like for 3 weeks.
But who refused this?
And then, yeah, I'm just explaining it so everybody would know what is on the table, basically. The idea is to hand over the administration to an alternative to Hamas, which is supposed to be the PA, the Palestinian Authority, which you used to be part of this PA. So I'm asking you, the narrative goes, okay, we have to have a renewed PA, Palestinian Authority. It has to have the support.
We have to,
just explaining
this is very westernized, as if you know what is better for me. You don't have the right. And Americans, they don't have the right to tell me you have to. I decide what I have to. I'm sorry, Kristin, for this. But I decide. You cannot tell me you have to have any. I'm telling you, we made 2 elections, and we made 2 presidential elections as well. And I'm not saying we are the only Arab country that have a continuous municipal election. We are, actually. We have a municipal election, even 2 years ago we had them. So what I'm saying, first, it's not Israel or America or Europe even, I apologize for this, who decides for us what kind of governance we're going to have for Gaza.
No, but it's the Palestinians themselves that say that there's a lack of legitimacy of this Palestinian Authority. I mean, people inside the West Bank are not very happy with their leadership.
But then they can decide in the election. You don't tell them.
Now we're getting into politics.
No,
I mean, the last elections were 18 years ago. But just, I mean, we want to focus on the future. Let's talk about future.
But when we had the election and Hamas won, you didn't accept them, right?
Yes, I agree with all of this.
So you want to make me democracy in your own recipe.
Yeah,
so you're doing like Amazon. You buy this book, I suggest you to have these books.
Okay. Now, why is Hamas still popular in the West Bank? Why is it still, you know, if you ask...
Again, you know, I wouldn't be fair when I speak about Hamas because I come from opposition party to Hamas. So don't take, I'm not a neutral when I'm speaking about this. So it's not fair. But I'll tell you something. But if the only party that calls for peace, which is Fatah, my party, I was on the honor to be the spokesperson of the party, and Gaza, one of Gaza leading committee of the party. And I was put in jail by Hamas. But if I want to talk as Palestinian, I have to say this. So if Fatah went to election, to peace process, and I tell you, Abbas will be the last Palestinian to accept two-state solution. Who want to bet? You will never find a Palestinian leader after that accepting two-state solution. You know why? Because Israel made this into a nightmare. Israel made the peace solution into a nightmare. So if Abbas and his party keep calling for peace until they lost many of their legitimacy, then you tell them, you're not legitimate. That's what happens. The European government, they were telling him, you know, the people, they don't like what he says about peace. Because they want, I remember my mother, she died anyway. My brother was in the Israeli jail. And when Arafat came, she went in the big demonstration in Jabalia, welcoming Arafat. Then I was talking with her. I said, Amina, you became a politician. She said, no, if peace process will bring my son back, I support peace process. She died before seeing my brother, because he was not released in the peace process. So definitely, this is why, you know, people can turn to parties which is not those involved in the peace process. And many of the legitimacy of the Palestinian Authority is taken from it because of its stand for peace and for this statement in favor for peace. And
for cooperating with the IDF forces sometimes by occupying it.
This is what the opposition would say. Exactly.
The civil society movements
but
that
this
you talk to
tells you how vivid our society is, our culture. We're very democratic and very vivid, and you could attack any politician. Again, you know, this culture is very rich. You know, this is where the concept of God was made, right? In my country.
Okay, I will pose the questions in another way.
The three religions, they were made in our country.
What has to happen for the PA to be able to govern Gaza, to go back to Gaza? What would you need from maybe the rest of the world? Maybe what would you need as support from the Arab states, from the Europeans, from the US, to be able to really take over as an alternative to Hamas?
To work with Netanyahu, they will accept them, Europe.
No, I'm asking you, what needs to happen from your point of view?
You know, you're trying to invent a different scenario. There is a war in this area. You stop the war, then let the Palestinians decide what they want. It's not, you cannot tell them, you know, of course we need the word because we need to not to rebuild. I told Abbas this in person. If I were you, I wouldn't accept it. I said, what? I said, if I were you, I wouldn't go to Gaza because you're not rebuilding Gaza. You're remaking Gaza. There is no Gaza at all. So of course you need the international community and mainly the Arab-rich countries and, you know, to build the Gaza, to remake Gaza. But at the same time, you don't tell me, oh, you know, you can't have Hamas tomorrow in the future. If I want to election, can I prevent anybody from participating in the election?
But how can you, for example, take the weapons from Hamas? How can you turn it into a political party maybe? I mean, nobody in Israel can imagine ever that Hamas can stay in Gaza as a ruling party.
We send them to Paradise?
No, I'm asking you how to confront this. How would you try to demilitarize them or take
we have
weapons?
A proper state, but for God's sake, we're never even for 30 years being given the opportunity to have a state. You know, if you have a state and you have political system and they are in the parliament and they are in the government and you don't tell them you're not supposed to be in the parliament, you come. Then of course people will live normal life. But we are not given the chance, you know. So it's not about demilitarizing, it's about having a full-fledged state. Then at that time you can tell everyone, listen, you don't have the right to have weapons, you don't have the right to be militarized. We have a state and we have police and we have an army and we have a seaport and airport. For you know, most of those people you're talking about, they've never been outside Gaza. For them, Gaza, the world is a movie from behind the screen. They don't know how does it look. But if you give them a full-fledged state, with a seaport, you know what's the sea in Gaza? It's a fence, like the border in Gaza. It's a border. For all the world, when you have a sea, you sail. But a coastal city like Gaza, the majority of its citizens, including myself, never been in a boat outside Gaza. So if you have a state where people enjoy freedom and rights, and they can feel like being, then you can talk about these stuff. But then you cannot say, listen, you're a good person, but you have to prove to be good. You have to prove. It's up to you to, it's not true. And you give me miserable situation and you want me to prove to be good. So the Palestinian Authority, from the very beginning, it expressed its interest, you know, and its willingness to go back to Gaza, to control Gaza. And they had even dealt with talks with Hamas on this and 2 weeks ago in Cairo, between Fatah and Hamas.
Do you think there can be some reconciliation?
Yeah, of course. We don't. I think after this war, we don't have any other choice. You know, you have to reconcile, and you have to have. We are my political opinion, and I wrote this. We don't need a national unity government. We need agreed upon government, agreed upon, but not a national. I don't want the political parties to be in the government just because I understand the sensitivity. I'm a student of European politics, but anyway, my PhD is about EU politics, so I understand all of this. And
agreed upon would mean that Hamas cannot act as a spoiler as well.
No,
this is important.
I'm saying agreed upon. That, again, like it or not, if there is election, Hamas will get 30% of the population now. You cannot tell them that this 30% we're not going to listen to you. You said about West Bank and the difference. Of course, people in Gaza, Hamas might get less even because of the war. It's something else. But I'm saying you need to have an agreed upon government wherein all Palestinian political parties make efforts to make this government succeed. But you don't need politicians, including myself, to be in the government. It's not Hamas, it's not any party. But it's not as well some people we export from Washington or from Brussels, experts. But I need some people who were living in Gaza, who worked in civil society, who work in academia. So you need an agreed upon government, and you need to re-engage in an actual peace talks, because the alternative for I told you Abbas will be the last Palestinian to dare ever to speak about two, and you will see this in the future, because nobody will dare.
Before we talk about the two-state solution, let's explain, or maybe have you explain a little bit more about life in the West Bank, because what we are hearing is a lot of settler violence. We hear about anti-terror operations of the IDF. So what is going on? How does it feel to live under occupation in the West Bank?
But again, the war is not in Gaza only. Remember that every day, the average of the people killed in the West Bank now, it becomes 10 to 11, to 12, sorry. This is average killing in West Bank, especially in the northern part of West Bank, Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, etc. And the checkpoints were tripled, the number of checkpoints in West Bank. In every little single neighborhood and village, there is now a checkpoint entrance. So like before we had like, I don't know the number, forgive me for not quoting the number exactly, but something around 70. But now we have 300 checkpoints in West Bank. So it's like hell, it's living in hell. I was in Ramallah for 6 months, I never been able to leave Ramallah city. Because I'm from Gaza, of course, they will take me back to Gaza. Anyway, so it's just, you know, every city and every village and every refugee camp is surrounded by checkpoints. So the war is, we see Gaza because the media is there. But West Bank, it's the same methods that they are applying to evacuate the camps in Gaza, they're doing it in West Bank. They're evacuating Jenin, Tulkarem, then they get in the bomb and, you know. So once again, then you ask, why people, they don't support the PA in West Bank? Because of these Israeli policies. Because they believe PA wants peace with Israel. And if it wants peace with, but if people are living in peace, and they're given their choice and given their freedom to travel, and you know, you can fall in love with a girl from Ramallah and you're from Gaza, you will never marry, and all your life you will not marry. You will have a virtual love, you know, on the internet only. Because I know people having cousin in Bethlehem. Even in the Christmas, they're not allowed to visit them.
Now, everybody still keeps on talking about a two-state solution, although we are having a one-state reality. We are having this one-state reality for a long time now. So there are different initiatives that are being discussed. We think about future Palestine, different options. There are two independent states. That is highly unrealistic, given that there are 700 settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. There's a federation of two states. one land for all. You have initiatives, civil society initiatives, who are discussing these things. What do you think is the most viable solution among these?
No,
And what needs to change to initiate this?
you know,
Such a
if you run to one state solution because of the failure of, if you run for one state solution because of the failure of two state solution, this is dangerous.
why?
Because you have to believe that the only possible solution is one state solution to make it. But now most of the people, they start to be disappointed with two state solution because it doesn't work with the Israeli settlements and West Bank. So again, how this conflict can be solved? Either by two ways. Either keep fighting or by having a peace deal. Is there any third solution? Either you have the conflict or you solve it. And if you think, and if Israel thinks by killing Palestinians, then we'll make them forget, this will not happen.
But what's the vision? I mean, what?
Wait. Let's come to the point where we believe in peace. So first we have to believe in the need to make a peace deal. So what are the two offers? We have just two offers. I have three offers actually. I will add one of them. Two-state solution according to 1967. But unfortunately, Israel managed successfully to turn this solution into a nightmare. You know, it was very hard for Arafat to accept a deal on 20% of the homeland. For this, even within Fatah, people opposed this solution. But he said, listen, I remember I was at that time in the youth movement of Fatah. He said, listen, if you want to peace, we have to accept this. If you want to survive. But then they want to negotiate you and to share with you the 20%. And now, for this, I'm telling you, you will not find, including myself, any Palestinian leader in the future accepting the two-state solution as it is now.
Why? What are they going to ask for?
One-state solution. But some people, they would call for two-state solution on the partition plan. Remember?
48.
Anybody remembers it? 1947. Which part divide the country into two, and within Jerusalem is internationalized. But I mean, in all cases, you have to have the desire. Peace, you have to fight for peace. Peace is not something that, because let's remember, we were born in this planet, then we have to fight the nature, which I'm against, you know. But we have to cut the trees, to kill animals, you know. The series of our history is a series of wars. But at a certain moment, you have to realize that you cannot live in peace if you don't believe in it. And I'm telling you, the Palestinians are very willing on this. But you cannot have peace when you don't give them their rights. It's not your peace. It's not what makes you happy. It's peace about what makes everyone happy. And nobody is ultimately would be happy. Because peace is about sacrifice as well. You have to sacrifice part of your demand. But then, when you tell the Palestinians, listen, how about guys, you take it 20%? Then they say yes. Oh, how about sharing it? You know, this place is holy for me, this is holy. It doesn't work, you know. Because for the mind of the Palestinian, and we never had a problem with the Jewish, let's remember this. Let's remember, we have Palestinian Jewish until now. And they're in favor of the Palestinian PLO and etc., you know. And I remember my grandmother, she used to have a Jewish neighbor in our building. She was living in the same building in Jaffa. And so we never had, even if you look at the names of Palestinians in Jaffa mainly, where these Christian, Muslim, Jewish, you don't know if he's a Christian or Jewish or Muslim from the name, because it's all shared names, you know. So we never had a problem. So we don't have a problem in living in peace. We have a problem with the lack of interest in peace from the other side, I would say.
At the end of your book, you describe your feelings when you left Gaza, and you're saying that your soul still resides in Gaza and that you feel ashamed of abandoning all those you left behind. So how do you, this is a feeling of betrayal I think a lot of people in exile have, right? This is what exile is maybe about. How do you cope with this feeling of betrayal?
You know, again, if I given the choice, I wouldn't leave. But you know, then you cannot be selfish. And I was a minister at that time and have ministerial duties. But I didn't feel easy actually when I left, you know. I felt that I could stay. But, you know, at the end, again, we're a human. We're not stones. We're not, no, you understand what I'm saying? I have my life. I love my life as well. And I thought I could defend the people from abroad either. I can talk about them like I'm doing here in other places. So, and they deserve to be told about. And they deserve, their stories deserve to be heard, actually. So they want people to talk about them. But I'm saying, yeah. Anyway.
How is your niece? She just came to my mind, Wissam. She survived. She was like.
Now she's in Qatar and she's operated to have 2 legs and 1 arm.
Yeah, we have to tell her story.
She's a good artist.
I mean, she was the only one with her sister who survived this attack 1 year ago, where her mother died and the rest of her family. Her 2 legs were amputated. She lost her hand. She's an artist. She just graduated. You were invited to the graduation party.
The 5th of October.
The 5th of October was her graduation party. She lost her 2 legs. She lost her hand.
But she represents the Palestinian soul of hope, actually. You know, if you talk to her, you don't feel that she was. I believe you. I can give you her number, WhatsApp number. She's very cheerful and very waiting for tomorrow when, actually, they're fixing her 2 legs. They did the first, artificial stuff and her arm, and she wants to go back to Gaza and to live and, to have
this
her
is,
life.
because maybe, the political situation is so hopeless and so desperate that everybody likes to quote you with this one sentence that you keep on writing, I feel. Hope is our only weapon. I mean, Wissam is really a symbol for that. Like, hope is our only
I'm not symbol
weapon.
For this.
You are, yes.
No,
how are we supposed to use this weapon? How do you want us to use the weapon of hope?
I always tell this story. My grandmom, she was a very rich lady, very beautiful by the way. She left Gaza, and she has 5 villas in Jaffa until now. I saw them. And she has to live in a tent. You know what the first thing she did? She gave birth to my dad. Because she thought, regardless, life has to continue. So hope is like the water we put in the tree of, I'm not going to spoil it anyway, on the tree of life, So it grows. So without hope, believe me, you don't live tomorrow. If you don't think of tomorrow, if you don't put plans for tomorrow, you don't enjoy today. So this is how I use the word we deceive ourselves, I would say. It's not deceiving. It's why, we try to convince ourselves of a better future. And believe me, we don't have any other option, only to hope for tomorrow, where we can live in peace and dignity and share our life with our neighbors. We don't mind, we love all people, And I'm happy that my country hosts all the bliss of all religions, because this means this is a sacred country. It's where, by the way, the word God was made in the old Palestinian tradition, El. When you say Mikael in Mikael, Gabriel, it's El, the God of the gods of the Canaanite. So in Arabic, it's the derivation of Allah, El, So I'm happy about this, and I want everybody to live in peace, but then you cannot live in peace while I'm stripped from this right. And the people in Gaza, now I know you want to conclude and finish, they should be given hope for the future. They should be given a glimpse of tomorrow. And they should believe that tomorrow is better. And without giving them this, you cannot criticize them for having weapons or saying this or that. They have to believe that tomorrow can be better. And that we as human beings, we share with them this dream. If we don't share it, then we stand on the wrong bank of the river. And it's very dangerous when we stand on the wrong bank of the river.
Thank you very much for helping us feel close to the people of Palestine, for telling the stories behind the numbers. Thank you, Atef Abu Saif.